Well, hello and welcome to Bishop Talk. I'm Bishop Robert Griffin, and thank you for joining us for this next episode of Bishop Talk. Bishop Talk aims to inspire through meaningful conversation and engaging conversation to just keep people engaged on things that are going on around our nation, around our globe through wonderful people that we have on our show. On today's show, we have a great individual that you're going to hear from just shortly here. I'm an auxiliary bishop with the Global Justice Institute, and I'm also serving as executive minister at the Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale. And as always, I'm glad to be joined by our co-host today, Bishop Durrell Watkins. And also today we have with us Reverend Dr. Canon Robert Lee. So we're going to let Bishop Durrell introduce himself, and we'll go from there.
Well, I am the senior minister of Sunshine Cathedral and let's see, Robert and I both have been at Sunshine Cathedral for 19 years here in Fort Lauderdale. And we have a lot of media stuff going on. So we are also the co-host of a program called Queer God Squad. And you can find that on the Happening Out Television Network. And I am frequently a guest anchor on Queer News Tonight on that same network. And I'm also the co-host of a show called Divine Science Everywhere, and that's on the New Thought Media Network. This Bishop Talk, we do sort of in-house, and you can find past episodes and this one at sunshinecathedral.org. So yeah, we're everywhere, and we talk to everyone. Our guest today is the Reverend Dr. Canon Robert Lee IV. He is a former pastor. He is an author. He was a spiritual advisor to the First Lady of the United States, not the current one. And he is the Canon Theologian, the first Canon Theologian we've ever had at the Sunshine Cathedral. He was a religion major at Appalachian State. He's got a master's degree from Duke. He's got a doctorate degree from Pacific School of Religion. And rumor has it there's a second doctorate in the works. So he is a scholar and a well sought after speaker and a public theologian. And today, our very special guest. So welcome, Robert Lee IV.
Thank you guys so much. And you realize that you've been at Sunshine Cathedral over half of my life. So I'm just gonna let that sink in for a second. So,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
well over half my life anyway. So,
Wow.
We were older than you when we got here.
well,
I was 39 when we came.
so
God
you're
bless.
doing great work though. Really important work. Really important work.
So, Robert, is there anything you want to self-introduce yourself with before we get anything that you want our audience to know about you or share about yourself?
No, well, gosh, I this 7 years ago this week, I kind of entered the public scene on MTV, on the Video Music Awards in front of 5.62 million people. I call that my largest pulpit I've ever had. Second to that is The View and other great places that I've gotten to do this kind of theology in public and think about ways in which the church intersects with the public square, and it's been really a great journey ever since. There's been challenges, there's been all kinds of different inroads and outroads, but it's all been one that I've been really grateful for to be on. So and it of course led me to be in relationship with you guys and with the cathedral, for which I have profound respect for, and I think you guys are doing some of the most important work on the religious landscape today.
Well, great. And thanks for taking time to be with us today. Our focus for today, just so people kind of know what we're talking about, is we're focusing on the theme today of the burden of history and the politics of memory. I was I was praying Facebook, as a friend of mine has taught me to do for many years ago, and I came across a former professor's Facebook post, and she was posting about an event that she was recently at, along with us, at the Jonathan Daniels Remembrance Ceremony in Haynesville, Maryland. And she did this wonderful post, but the phrase that caught my eye out of her post was just that line, the burden of history and the politics of memory. And you can follow her on Kwok and Roll on her podcast and also on Facebook. But I thought this topic would be great for Rob today because of his historical connection to historical events and his family situation, and also just his history around church and scholarship and theology and all of that. So let's just jump
One
in.
of his theses we should mention is actually focused on U.S. presidents, so that's actually super relevant to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for
what do
sure.
we want to start with that kind of a focus? What do we want to start? Presidents, politics, theology?
Well, it all intersects, right? I mean, like there is this, I mean, I think for so long we've gotten used to the idea that the separation of church and state means that we can't talk about those things together. And there is value in the separation of church and state. The state should not tell the church what to do. That said, the church should have every right to say and to have a voice in the public square, and especially with issues that matter and issues of consequence. I mean, I've seen you all out with Alligator Alcatraz. That's been an incredible moment of public witness that intersects the political, the religious, the kind of the presidential, even the fact that our president has enabled that is just egregious. But it is this idea that these all kind of conflate and come together. And yet we kind of, as church people, at least where I'm from, down south, this part of the South, we like to think of it as like we have to avoid that. We can't talk about that. We just got to get Jesus and move on. Well, the pulpit Jesus church has always inherently been political. It's always inherently been something that is required of to be in the public square to maintain a sense of faithful relevance. And so to me, this is, Jonathan Daniels, other people throughout history have proven time and time again that we have to be not only praying with our feet, but speaking in such a way that public theology is on our lips.
Mm, mm. Um, just from your let's do history for just a second. And given the current political stuff that we're going through right now with the what I'm almost calling the sanitation of America is what it seems like. The erasing of so much is happening in around
Generation.
America. People in a transgender community, gay people, DEI in history, just even hearing, what's your take on that kind of movement that we see happening today, just to really, you know, almost erase people, erase communities, and just erase it all and redo it with what and why?
Well, it is interesting, for instance, and there's two points of history, especially in the United States, that come to mind that I really think of in this moment. The first is the internment of Japanese people, Japanese Americans, Japanese foreign nationals in internment camps during World War II, at the order of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Mm,
This idea of rounding people up and putting them somewhere so that we can figure out what to do with them the resonances there are strangely familiar.
mm,
Um, the other example, and I don't want this to sound hyperbolic or this is any hyperbole or anything. The only thing difference between the antebellum South and now is that we haven't picked up guns to shoot at each other yet.
mm,
There is a real sense that we are barreling towards a conflict of the proportions of which we saw at Fort Sumter, of the proportions which we saw at Antietam, and I'm not trying to be alarmist, but that's what's missing is violence and bloodshed, and so on that scale, and so it should alarm us, but it should also give us courage in this moment because if you think about those times in our history. There were people who, in moments of consequence, stood up and said, "Hey, this isn't right. This is not the way we should go. There is a better way." Did it ultimately lead to peaceful resolutions on all sides? No, but I think that when my time is committed to history, and this is kind of that tragic, painful memory, is that I don't want it to be said of me that I was on the sidelines when my friends, when the people that I love dearly, my trans siblings, my queer siblings, were suffering. The immigrant among us, the foreigner among us was suffering. I don't want it to be said of me that I was over here just minding my own business,
mm,
because I think that's what we're getting to is it is affecting a huge amount of people but it's not affecting me. I'm a white dude. I'm a white straight male. I'm good in some ways until I realized that by losing all these people in my life, I would be far poorer a person. To not have queer, trans, immigrant, disenfranchised people experiencing homelessness. I mean, the list is getting bigger and bigger by the day, and so there is some real concern that if I don't stand up now, I don't know how we're going to stop this.
yeah.
Because kind of we like to keep this sort of tight. We don't go on all day. Plus, we all have other appointments anyway. But we have so much to talk about, and I don't think we want to make this a 2 or 3 part thing. So I want to like maybe have bullet points. Like I'm gonna because there's like 10 things or whatever, 5. I want to just say a thing, a topic, and have you respond because it's too much. It's
Yeah.
just too much. So I'm going to try to narrow it down and say a thing, and then you go. And then when you take
Yeah.
a breath, I'm going to interject another thing.
Okay. Yeah,
There
I'll do
you
my
go.
best. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There you
Let's
go.
do it.
So the first thing, because you're talking about the violence, not on the scale of launching a full-scale civil war, and a lot of the states that you're talking about have reclaimed sort of a right to unrestrained armament. In fact, we're just talking today in our staff meeting about how we're going to put signs on the campus saying no guns allowed inside because we have to say that because we're willing to say we're if we don't say that it'll just be in people's purses and backpacks because why not? And so that is where we live. And then January 6th, I don't know how that didn't scar every American. There are people who this day are saying, well, that was a peaceful protest. People died for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? But it was a peaceful protest. What was wrong with that? You stormed the Capitol, and within days, 5 people were dead and people scarred. And so the violence isn't warlike yet, but it's only because it's not there yet. So can you talk about this weird sort of worship of violence? And I've got a theological statement about that if we can work it in later, but this weird worship of violence that's embraced by the church and by so-called defenders of democracy.
Well, if you notice all of the states that have sent many of the states who have sent troops, National Guard troops to DC, they are part of what one podcast that I really appreciated called the Former Confederacy.
Mm-hmm.
This seems to be a geographical reality for some of these people. Yeah, we'll send troops up there. Yeah, this is our birthright. This is our states' rights. This is whatever you want to call it. It doesn't seem very states' rights to me to send federalized troops to our nation's capital. It almost seems like the people who have never had the opportunity to have the mic have taken the mic and are pointing a gun to it. And that's really scary to me. I don't like violence. I don't think it's something to glorify in any way. In fact, I think we Christians follow someone who was inherently against violence and was an enemy of the state because of his, the way that he viewed these things. And so, to me, thinking about this theologically, it's clear where we go from here. Beat our swords into plowshares, our spears into pruning hooks, train for war no more. That all sounds nice, but right now it's also really scary too, because as you said, on the ground, people's lives are at stake.
Right. And I remember the last time these sort of people had an administration, there was a break and then they're back. Uh, this same group of leaders gassed people
Mm.
in DC. Now they're militarized troops against their own people, and are threatening to do this in other cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. And what I can't help but notice is that every city on the list is a diverse city with a lot of African American members and leaders. And I can't believe that's an accident.
Well, and if you also look at it, the cities or the states that are sending these federalized troops to our District of Columbia, their crime rates are higher than that of the districts.
Of
The
course.
district is at one of its all-time lows for crime. This is not an issue of crime. This is a statement of, look what I can do here. You
Mm-hmm.
should be scared of what I can do there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we have leaders that are co-opting that and taking that as an opportunity for a power grab. And violence begets violence. We know that. And
Yeah.
this is the only way we're going to stop this is to find a way to take an off ramp. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't have all the perfect answers, but I do know that us taking up arms against one another is not going to end well for anyone.
That never goes well. I wonder. I've tried to stay out of the DC statehood. I don't live there. I just try to be neutral on that. Who cares? It was started as a federal city. Who am I to whatever? I'm starting to rethink that because already there an argument can be made that they have taxation without representation. Uh, well, now if they can just be taken over on a whim, it was happened once before that I remember to help with finances, and then it was turned back over. If it can just be taken over on a whim, because I don't think you're handling this, that, or the other business well enough, or whatever, maybe statehood is the answer. They're more populous than some states.
Well, and
No, I don't know the answer, but they need to do something.
my friend Beto O'Rourke, who was a presidential candidate in recent years, he has this comparison that's really, really apt, and I think it's really important to make. Everybody's saying play fair, play fair. We shouldn't make DC a state. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. We've got all this stuff going on, and the reality is, well, it's like the referees are punching us, and it's like the players are punching us, and we've got nothing left to give except to fight back in using our policies, our politics, our way of life to say this is what we know to be true about ourselves, and we're going to stand up for something.
Mhm.
Maryland and California are making responses to Texas gerrymandering, redistricting, or whatever. And the discussion is, of course, we are meant to choose. The voters are meant to choose the leaders. At this point, the leaders are choosing the voters.
Right.
And and it seems like that was a problem once before, and we got through it just like uh, 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 too few people owning the economy. That was a problem before, and then 1929 happened. We restructured. It seems like we have failed to learn some lessons that I remember in like eighth grade, ninth grade, 10th grade history classes that we insist on reliving these nightmares that we should have learned from. We've done this. We don't have to do this again, and yet here we are. Can you say something about like your view of all this redistricting mag? It's obviously a power play. It's about power and control, but pastorally, what do you say to that?
I struggle with it because to me, there is a real sense of, I don't know how to make this right. I don't know how to fix this. I really don't. And so all I'm going to say is that at the end of the day, I hope my daughter's right here. Can you, no, you can go
Hey,
on.
she disappeared out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
you say Phoenix, say, hey, Phoenix.
Hey,
Sorry,
Phoenix.
go on and get your thing. Yeah, go on, go on. Yeah, sorry, it's a home theater kind of thing, I guess, for the podcast.
Energized in. I
But
love it.
but you were making
She's
it
popped
work.
in.
She's getting ready for gymnastics. All that's to say is that in this power grab, I don't have the right answer. I don't know how to. I do know that the Voting Rights Act has been gutted, and that's been a terrible thing. That was, as Durrell, as you were talking about, kind of historically the things that have prevented this kind of gerrymandering, even from a liberal perspective, and a progressive perspective. And so, what we have to do is to reclaim this narrative. I think we're going to have to fight fire with fire, but we're going to have to remember these things when we get back into power, whatever that looks like, if we're able ever to,
Mhm.
and maybe claw back some of those ways that we fought so that we don't have to fight this way again.
Mhm. Can I just step in one question, Drew? Do you think that we are beyond the voting box at this point? I mean, can we legitimately take it back by the ballot?
I think we can. I think we can. I don't think we've lost it.
Okay.
I think that what is going to be key for clergy, for lay people, for all kinds of people, both religious and non-religious, coming up not only in the midterms, but in 2028, is to pay particular attention to what is going on with the ballot box. I don't want us to see irregularities and thus us throw out the election in 2028 or us gerrymander so hard that we can't gerrymander our way back in 2026. There's some real danger to this politically. And if we look at it, when people have messed with that stuff in the past, as Durrell aptly pointed out, it's never ended well. There's been examples where people have tried. I mean, who can forget? Even I was young at the time, but in 2000, with the bated breath as Florida tried to figure out what was going on, we can't have that happen in 2028. It needs to be a decisive victory for the Democrats, or whatever happens if there's a new party that evolves out of this. I don't know. But it looks like if it's going to be the Republicans and Democrats, it's going to have to not only be a decisive victory, but one that's a coalition of people coming together, religious, non-religious, progressive, moderate, left-leaning, whatever you want to call it. We're going to have to do this together, and we're not only going to have to do it, we're going to have to squash it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And let me just add to you that I think if you look at the world, they're watching right now as they did in 2024, kind of like saying, okay, what's going on here? Um, this is the last train out. If we can't, I will be a lot less hopeful in 2028
Mhm.
um, if we can't just annihilate them in the ballot box,
Mhm.
just completely take them to the cleaners, kind of thing.
And they are certainly trying to structure things to where even if we turn out masses, that could turn out a different way. I mean,
Right.
they know that. So, but it was a sort of a call to wake up in 2000 when the election was decided by a single Supreme Court justice. Like it got down to that the state where it was in question was led by the same party as the winner. The justice that made the tie-breaking vote was appointed by the person's father. Uh, you know, that it was so close and so narrow, and it seemed, I think in the end, probably legitimate. I mean, it was okay, but it was so tight and so scary. It was a time to pay attention, and we didn't.
Well, and it
And
could have gone either way too. That's what's, I mean, we could have had President Gore for
yeah,
4 to 8 years. I mean, and so it adds question. Yes.
but I do think that if it's too late, if we don't have the votes to make it, if like we can't vote our way back to it, it's not because they took it, it's because we gave it away. Because
Right.
in most of my adult life so far, more people have sat home than voted on almost every election. Like half or barely over half, sometimes under half, showed up. So we're talking about 30% of the people, whatever they think is how we wind up going. And that's totally on us. Because you
Well,
could
and
have shown up and written somebody in. I mean, I don't care. Like as long as you participated, we have to live with what it is. But if you didn't even participate, that sends me into a blind rage.
well, there's less and less excuses to vote now, and I hope people will remember that come midterm time and come election time. Well, you can mail in voting unless they try to take that away, but
Yeah.
right now there's a lot of purviews for us to vote. And on top of that, had people who needed to had had people showed up to vote, in mass in ways that we had seen in elections past. It was a high turnout election, in 2024, but it wasn't groundbreakingly high. We could have won. And I think that there was a lot to say to that. A lot of people are having a lot of opinions about that. And if you ask someone, they might have four different opinions about it. But all that's to say, at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that our coalition of people, both faithful, unfaithful, whoever, gay, straight, whoever, just get them there. Drag them to the ballot box if you have to.
I'm afraid we're stuck with the electoral college. I hope not. I hate it. It's a vestige of a very racist. It's about control. I do hate it, and I especially hate it since we did show up in numbers and voted for a person uh, in 2016 who, though got the popular vote, still lost. And so that's how we got the first round of all this. So there's just so much systemic, and we've talked about my whole life about systemic problems, and we just ignored it or excused it away or compromised it or whatever. And now I'm afraid systems are so broken, I don't see how they can be repaired. I mean, some of them I feels like we have to start over, and we don't have the collective will to start over.
We may
I'm
not have the
far less
collective will
optimistic than I used to be.
We may not have the collective will to start over, but there are tools that we can have right now in our toolbox that we can use as people of faith, as people who are on this conversation, in this conversation. One of those, Eugene H. Peterson famously said that you have this one sermon that you always preach. Our one sermon right now, as people calling attention to this, should be something akin to he's doing all these bad things plus the Epstein files. I mean,
Right.
it seems that has struck a chord. And again, I'm just playing political junkie here, who happens to be a pastor. I'm, not endorsing one or the other. I'm not trying to do all that and getting all that. But I am saying that in a real sense, that has taken hold. And if that's our one sermon right now, he's doing this. And then you guys remember those Epstein files, right? I mean, that really seems to have taken hold. And Democrats have got to kind of play a little bit of the antagonists here. We've
Right.
got to say to ourselves, we may not be in power, but we can sure as hell make some noise to make people reconsider and consider everything that they voted for in 2024 if they voted for Donald Trump.
I know we're not endorsing parties or candidates, which is easy right now because there's not an election going on.
Right.
But we can certainly always prophetically critique whoever's in power. But there is an indictment against the church. The church's hypocrisy has become so overwhelming. I'm so busy trying to redeem the faith community that there's so little energy left over to fix politics, although that's also necessary. But we have, and who would have thought this was even possible? Never mind, it was a big controversy that Ronald Reagan, a divorcee, became president. It was big, big controversy just because of that. It never happened before. It seems silly, and we got over it and good. Uh, Clinton seriously misbehaved. Really the most powerful person in the world, and an intern, the power differential off the charts wrong. Of course it was, but we got through it and even reelected him. So okay, fine. But now, an unrepented rapist.
Right.
An adjudicated rapist had to pay millions of dollars, and that is after his second wife had charged him with rape, walked it back later, but said that she had been raped. This is in addition now to the Epstein stuff. Like, clearly, it is not hyperbolic or unfair to say he's a sexual predator. Everyone knows it. He doesn't even bother denying it much. And yet, the Christian church, the right wing of the Christian church, that's still their savior.
Well,
So if you want to about politics, that is detrimental to what everyone in the Christian church had to offer.
well, and the other thing I struggle with on my side of the fence where I sit as someone who is a Democrat is that um and a person of faith too. Of course, one of the people that I'm familiar with and have worked closely with President Biden has been, of course, diagnosed with a really aggressive form of cancer. Um, that's really sad, but I would take that any day over what we're dealing with now. And yet we are sitting here in 2025, and if you turn on a podcast, you turn on something, you turn on the TV, you turn on something, it's all critiquing of the Biden-Harris agenda, their campaign, the way they ran it, the way who did what. Look, we don't need to adjudicate that. We need to, as you said, fight against the adjudicated rapist, the person who has done these things. We've got, Donald Trump's really quick to blame Joe Biden. We can't be just as quick to do
Mhm.
the same to him and to Vice President Harris. We've got to take ownership in this. We failed. We failed people. We failed by in some ways, and in other ways, we played the hand we were dealt. And look, at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those things that in 2028, if we're still rehashing old wounds, we're not going to win. It's just
Mhm.
clear.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
clear.
and I've heard said that the Christian army is the only army that shoots its own shoulders, shoots its own shoulders, soldiers. I'm not sure that it's the only one. I think the liberal army does that too. We eat our young.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we are not nearly as loyal as the other side is to their and of course they're loyal to a fault. Like their people can turn out to be absolutely monstrous. Doesn't bother them. I think that is a flaw, but it's also a flaw to be so, hypercritical that no one could possibly live up to. It seems like we're just too. We think our goal, our lot in life, is to tell you what you're doing wrong without offering a real solution. Whereas the other side, the goal is we don't do anything wrong, and if you say we do, you're in trouble. They are two sides of the same unfortunate dysfunctional coin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we're going to have to figure out ways. I've written off a lot. There's a lot of people that I can't reach that will never, ever come our way. But we have to kind of have the coalition of the willing for this coming election. We're gonna have to convince people, say, hey, you voted for this in 2024. You may have voted for this in 2016 and in 2020, but now you're gonna have to see you're seeing what this is, and because I don't think everybody who voted for Donald Trump is stupid. I really don't. I think that they were misguided. I think they were promised something that he can't deliver on. And so that's going to be our job is to not rehash our old wounds and to blame people in 2028 like he's going to do. We're going to have to say, okay, yeah, we've just got to move on. It's time. It's time. So,
I'm going to group these last bunch together as if it were one for the sake of time. And it's under the heading of erasure because Robert brought that up from the very beginning. Um, Rainbow sidewalks, that weird, funky, battle that's going on. The don't say gay stuff here in Florida. It's already 2 years or more into that silliness. Drag performances. I mean, states have actually made it illegal. Then the courts clap back, but that's still in flux about drag, about performance, about freedom of expression. Um, you've already mentioned the World War II Japanese internment. That I don't know why people just seem to like they don't remember or it's not they don't think it's a big thing. That exactly one country in the history of the world has used nuclear weaponry in warfare, and it's none of our enemies. This clampdown on museums, national history museums, cultural museums, to not show the stories of our lives and our past and our history, that they're actually the Kennedy Center, named for a war hero, renamed for some guy's wife. You know what I mean? Like it's the erasure is overwhelming. The Roe v. Wade being just toppled, that women no longer have access. And I don't care what your personal opinion is about when ensoulment happens, there are people in the world who don't believe in souls. Like, so that's just your personal opinion. I don't care about it. What I care about is that citizens, humans, have autonomy. And so, but now women who had, and this is what scares me. We've always not quite gotten there. We always had more to do to get better. This is the first time I remember getting worse, where we have lost what we had fought for, where we lost what we had gained, where we lost what we had won. So not only is we're not there yet, we're not as much as far along as we were, and that's very concerning to me. So it's just the rewriting of racist history, the erasing of LGBTQ people, the war on women's bodies. There's a new threat to marriage equality. We only had it a decade. New threat to that all of this, where we're just trying to make all kinds of people who aren't white, straight, evangelical, cisgender, people of means, to erase all these people, to take away their voice or their story or their faces in public, or in the case of immigrants, some of whom are here legally, take away their presence. Um, this erasure thing is a very big deal, and maybe not the worst ever, but the worst that I've seen. And I grew up, in the 70s and 80s in the Bible Belt, and still, this is the worst that I've seen.
I think of two things. First thing, one thing that you missed that I think is actually a really good inroad for some people who may be on the other side of the aisle or other side of this issue is the renaming of the USS Harvey Milk
Oh,
by the
yeah.
United States Navy. Not only, I mean, look, yes, Harvey Milk was gay, but we're taking a name of an American sailor off of a ship because we don't like that because that's somehow un-American because that's somehow not the man fought for our country. I mean that's to me um, if we're really that is a good inroad for some veterans. I think that we have to really think about okay, why would we do that? Why would we not honor this man who fought so diligently and faithfully for our country in a way that you would understand, and yet they're willing to take his name off of there? What
For
do you think
killing
of that?
queer people and queer kids,
Right.
your life is insignificant. There's something innately wrong with you. We are worse because you exist. And that is a deadly message.
Well, and I think too, we can also fight fire with fire. I mean, one of the things that I often ask people, I was at a drag protest one time, helping people get across the picket lines to the drag where their kids were going to be read a book by a drag queen. I really wanted to understand what is so dangerous about that? What is so dangerous about a drag queen reading to a child? Is that threatening? What is threatening about that? Are you afraid that the child might somehow feel within them a hereditary instinct? Are you saying that it is hereditary that this drag queen can somehow impart or awaken something in this child that is innate within them to where they too? I mean, you've got to play it out because none of this plays out, right? Like this erasure stuff does not work because it ultimately will come for all of us. There is something wrong with each of us if they play it out the way they're playing it out. I'm too liberal, and I'm a white straight male again to point out like that should be enough. And yet I don't want to go to DC right now, um, because I have a history. I'm a well-known and well-documented history. And I think that's the danger of this is that you can't just think that this is going to happen to Mrs. Smith down the street when it could very easily come to your house. Now, deeper than that, we're going to have to awaken ourselves in such a way that that's not the only reason we're doing it, but certainly it is a way that calls us to action. Because look, there are so many people in my life that I've come to know and gotten to know who are here who are undocumented, who are here who are experiencing homelessness, who are here who are queer, trans. They're all in the line of fire right now. And I am a firm believer that I can be a lightning rod for that, and I can stand in the gap if I have to. But I can also stand alongside them and say, look, this is not the end of the story. We're going to figure this out together. And I really do believe that, at least for right now, we have the upper hand because we kind of can translate this into a theological key. There is scripture, there is reason, there's tradition that has shown all the saints and martyrs and people who have gone before us who have shown the way for moments like this. And if you think this is bad, think of Rome in the 300s. Think of Rome before that. Think of Rome when Jesus was around. I mean, like think of the prophets in exile. I mean, this is something that we all feel in deep within us, but it's also been felt before. And so that can give us some consolation and something to look to in moments like this.
is giving it a wrap up here. But my mind, my thoughts continue to go to that passage that says, "For such a time as this." For such a time as this, there are places like Sunshine Cathedral and other opening and affirming, and people who welcome everyone, who wants to stand up against the injustices that are happening around our nation and literally around the world right now. And there are people like you who are willing to, as you just said, to be that lightning rod. Not everybody's willing to be that type of an ally or that type of person who will stand in solidarity with various groups of people. So I think that we have to remind ourselves that we are here for such a time as this, for the broader community, and not just our community, but really for the broader community, because they're not just coming after any one population anymore or a segment of population. They're coming after everybody. And
Well,
I think
and Robert, one of the things I've thought about especially with that for such a time as this, I do a thought exercise with this. I kind of wonder if Mordecai whispered that, like if his voice shook a little when he said that this is for you, this is your time,
yeah,
and it takes both Mordecai's and it takes both Esther's. It takes people to say, you were called, because Esther didn't say that to herself. She did not say, "I'm called for this moment."
No,
She had to be reminded by Mordecai.
she had to come out of the closet and
She,
at great risk.
yes,
Her
yes, yes,
predecessor got bounced out for,
yes, and she knew there was an innate risk with what
consequences.
she did. There was no guaranteed outcome.
yeah.
We stand in that legacy because there is no guaranteed outcome that the day after election on 2028 that we will have the win.
Right.
But we have got to do everything in our power as people of faith, as non-people of faith, as people who believe in things and don't believe in things, as people who wonder about things, to make this our moment to say, yeah, we're here for this, and this is what we got to do.
Now, before we go, I have to ask, you are sitting in a particular unique spot with the USS Enterprise behind you. Captain Kirk, and all I can hear him saying is engage, boldly go where no one has gone before. How do you wrap that up with that setting and what we've been talking about today? How do we engage and boldly go forward?
There is this wonderful episode of Star Trek where Captain Picard has to um, plead a case for Data because Data is not considered human in the eyes of the Federation.
Mm,
And so they're going to tear him apart limb from limb to study him. Now, I'm not comparing people to robots, and there's a lot of faults in that. I do think that there are going to be moments where people who look and sound and talk like me or don't are going to have to stand up and say, look, I'm going to stand up for my friend. I'm going to stand up for this person down the street. I'm going to stand up for this person in my community. Um, I'm not, I'm clear that it's not going to be easy. But I am confident that if we stand together, that's a little bit harder for them to take us both out.
yeah.
And I think that's what Picard realized in that episode is that that Data had value just because he was Data,
Mm.
not because anything else, not because of anything else he offered Starfleet or the Federation or anything. And so I think that we have to realize that we're together in this, and the only way out of this is to boldly go into God's unfolding future.
That'll preach.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, Rob, for being with us today, and I thank Bishop Durrell Watkins for being with us today as well here on Bishop Talk. And again, you can find all of our podcasts at sunshinecathedral.org, and just click on Bishop Robert Griffin's page. You'll find all the talks there. Again, Dr. Lee, thank you for being with us and giving us your time today.
Thank you guys. And you guys are truly some of the greatest leaders on the religious landscape right now. I really do believe that, and I'm so proud of the work you're doing.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.